Sorry about the lateness of Baruch Hashem, we're learning. Okay, Chodesh Tov everyone. Today we're going to have hopefully no elevator rashim. Last week, but it was a nisayon, but Bezrat Hashem will have a good... Oh, is the page here of... That one, the other one? Yeah, it's one I mentioned. Here's a shiurim at 4. So we're continuing to learn this week for Tziril Bat Harav Eliyahu, and for the Hatzlacha of the Bar Mitzvah boy Gabriel Yaakov ben David Yeshua, Leilui Nishmat Yisachar Mendel ben Tzvi Alter, and Leilui Nishmat Moshe Eliezer ben David. And also, what's that? You know, I have to turn this off because I just sorry. Refuah for who? Noah Bat Tova. And for the precious birthday girl, my daughter, Tiferet. Teenager. Bina and I became parents 13 years ago today. So, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, Elchanan ben Livna, Chaim Nachum ben Fega, Rivka. Refuah Shlema from yesterday. Nachon. All the Ptzulim. Yeah, those are some of the names from yesterday. Okay, I'll tell you something amazing that happened to me last night, actually, speaking about this. I'm thinking about Rosh Chodesh, the Chule. Last night I was at a chuppah, and just tell you about who Am Yisrael is. I mean, you know this. Everything I'm saying to you is things that you know. It's not going to be a chiddush to anybody. But last night I did a chuppah for someone I'm really close friends of mine for many years. And right before, about, 2-3 hours after the pigua yesterday, so the Chatan texted me, and he said to me, I was supposed to be off my WhatsApp today. I'm not supposed to be on, but someone just told me what happened, and it's my next door neighbor. They live in Har Nof. This is the Atias family, those of you that know the Atias family. And this boy was my next door neighbor. So I'm asking you to please bring his name and his presence to the chuppah tonight, under my chuppah. So, we have all this, and what it basically meant also is that plenty of the families that were invited from the Chatan side probably came from the funeral to the chuppah, right? Because it's that neighborhood in Har Nof. So it was just such a, under the chuppah, I obviously mentioned his name, and we just said over and over again, Hazorim bedima berina bedima berina bedima berina bedima berina yikzoru. Those that, what do you say that in English? They sow with tears, reap with joy, but you keep on going back between tears, joy, tears, joy, tears, joy, tears, joy, tears, joy. And that seems to be our dance. And this is Rosh Chodesh is a time, obviously, for hitchachut, for simcha, but Hashem really, gave us a patch, Erev Rosh Chodesh. So I hope and pray that Bezrat Hashem, like I saw one of the Hespedim yesterday, that however we're meant to wake up, on whatever level that means, that in the schut of the hitchachut of this month, that we have enough guts to wake up, and Hashem should have Rahmanas on us and not have to wake us up through any more pain and any more tears. And we should just hold on to each other and give each other koach to navigate through this dance. And let it be already Hazorim, let's just be Hazorim Berina Yiktzoru Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach. So the piece we're going to see today, short piece, beautiful piece from Reb Tzadok on Rosh Chodesh. This is from one of his Sfarim called V'sisei Laila. Now, one of the things, I'm not testing to see who davened this morning, but one of the things you would have noticed, if in Musaf this morning it says, Rashi Chodashim le'amcha natata, Zman kapara lechol toldotam. Rosh Chodesh is a time for kapara. It's a time for Tshuvah. It's a time of starting, because of the nature of hitchachut, that means it's a time for starting again. Zman kapara. Rabbi Nachman in Likutei Eitzos under Rosh Chodesh, based on a teaching in Likutei Maran, speaks at length about this concept of why is it that every Rosh Chodesh is a time for Tshuvah. And think about it, every Rosh in the way that we celebrate, the way that we commemorate, the way that we bring in, live with the calendar, every Rosh has to do with Tshuvah. Think about it. Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah's Tshuvah. Every beginning by us always has to do with Tshuvah. Now, of course, Baruch Hashem, we've already kind of rewrapped the product called Tshuvah, and it doesn't have this sad element to it as much as maybe it did when we were kids, or scary element, more inviting element, more powerful element. But what is it about Rosh Chodesh? Why is Rosh Chodesh, every single Rosh Chodesh, a time for Zman Kapara, a time for atonement, a time for forgiveness? What is this? What's going on over here? So Reb Tzadok is going to say something really, really beautiful. It's not too complicated. Not too complicated. I chose the easiest piece I can remember. He's lummed us. Every piece we've seen is like, it's pretty, it's very, you got to work with it. You have to really be with it. This is already something a little bit just lighter, just for the nature of what we're in right now, but look at this. Kedushat Rosh Chodesh hu neged darga de David Hamelech alav shalom. The holiness of Rosh Chodesh is keneged the darga, the level, the energy of David Hamelech alav shalom. And David Hamelech was regel revi'i shebemer kava, the fourth leg of the chariot. Who are the other three legs? Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, right? The four legs of the chariot. Now, what does it mean that something's a leg of a chariot? It means that in order for the Shekhinah to have the, so to speak, this is all metaphorically speaking, but it's for us to take on these midot, for the Shekhinah to be able to have a movement in the world, it sits upon the four wheels, okay? The four wheels, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and David. David is the fourth leg. He is Keneged Rosh Chodesh. Okay, let's see what he says, how he explains this over here. Again, Kedushat Rosh Chodesh hu neged darga de David Hamelech alav shalom, regel revi'i shebemerkava, shehi madrega ha-revi'it mehasagat merkavto yitbarach batachtonim. So that means the way that we mesig, the way that we understand how to carry Hashem within us and be po'el in the world. That's what it means to be a leg of the chariot, right? Hasagat merkavto yitbarach batachtonim, that means down here. How do we do this down here? How do we enable the light of the Shekhinah? I feel weird saying this in a women's shir, because who am I to say a word right now, but I'm just trying to be a shliach for his words. How do we carry the light of the Shekhinah in this world? We have to understand what Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov represent. Baruch Hashem, we're in the parashas of this right now. We're in the parasha. This week, is the only Shabbos in the Torah, where for a few minutes the three avot are all alive at the same time. The beginning of Todot, we learned this already in the past. For a few psukim, it's really interesting. Just for a few psukim, they're alive, all three of them together. But then right away we go into Yitzchak sitting Shiva for his father Avraham Avinu, and that's where the whole story of the birthright happens. But for a few minutes they're together, Beseder. But the fourth leg is what we're talking about right now. How to enable the light of the Shekhinah, that I could be a conduit for the chariot to move through the world. We all want to do that. We all want to be shluchim for that. So we have to understand today what David Hamelech is to really understand what Rosh Chodesh is. And he'll explain. V'hu hagever shehekim ula shel Tshuvah, like the Gemara says in Moed Katan. When we could say a lot of things about David Hamelech. What are some other things we could say about David Hamelech that you could throw into the pot right now? If I would tell you, David Hamelech, what comes to mind? Huh? Composer, Meshorer.
Expresses himself through that means.
Nachon. Very, very, very expressive. What else?
Suffering.
Huh? Suffering. Nachon. Malchut. That's a very important one. Malchut. So here we go. And she said Tshuvah. See, interesting. At the same moment, two words were said. Chet and Tshuvah. I'm not going to psychoanalyze right now why that happened right now. I'm just saying. Right. We're all connected. So this is the thing. David Hamelech comes from which Shevet? Yehuda. What do they share in common? What else? They're Baalei Tshuvah. The two people in the Torah, and the person in the Torah that really represents that world of Tshuvah is Like Yehuda says in the end of Parashat Miketz, Ha'elokim matzah et avon avdecha, chatati la'Hashem, right? And what's that? Tzadkam Imeni is by Tamar. And David Hamelech, his great-great-great-great-grandson, is basically, mamash, continuing the same line. Hekim ulat shel Tshuvah. They established this yoke, this world of Tshuvah. The Shloshet avot, back inside, 5th line, Shloshet avot hishtadlu liot rak tov velo chat'u klal. I mean, like, whatever. It's a rant I'm about to not avoid starting in 3, 2, and 1. Biblical critics will go to school on this. Shloshet avot hishtadlu liot rak tov velo chat'u klal. How could you say such a thing, right? The Torah lets us know who to learn Tshuvah from, and I trust the Torah for that to navigate me and direct me who to learn Tshuvah from. I don't really learn Tshuvah from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I could give drashas, I could darshan things out, but that's not really what they're bringing to the table when I'm learning Chumash and Rash. That's not really what they're doing. What they're really doing, they're establishing midot. Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferet / Emet. That's what they're doing when I'm learning Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov in the Torah. When it comes to David Hamelech, and really when it comes to Yehuda, then this is really what it's bringing to me in my face. And it's not like I have to darshan it out. I think what they're trying to tell me is to talk about Chataim and Tshuvah. No. It's pshat. Huh? It's pshat. It's not, you don't have to work too hard to understand this. But he says the 3 avot, what they were trying to do is like really what we know about them. Again, at what age do we meet Avram Avinu? Don't give me any midrashim, just the pshat. How old is Avram when we meet him?
70.
75. Maybe 74 you could say, I don't know. But 70, right there. So I don't know what he did until then. But the Torah isn't saying to me, whatever he did until then, that's not what we're interested in you learning from him. Yitzchak, Yaakov. What we know is what the Torah lets us know about them. Tishloshet avot ishtadlu liot rak tov velo chatu klal. U'ma yaseh mi she'eno kamohem. The problem is, what happens if I learn, my whole Torah is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and I say, Efo ani ve'efo him. Now I have to ask myself, Matai yagiu ma'asai le'ma'asei avotai. It's true. I have to ask myself, like, when will I reach that level? But for right now, I don't feel at all that I fall into Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu's jurisdiction. What's going to be with me? How can I be a regular Merkava today in this world if that's what it means to carry Hashem's name in the world? Can't be. Who do I need? I need David Hamelech. Why do I need David Hamelech to be the 4th leg in the fourth wheel in the chariot?
I think we have to see that it's possible. If you see a person who's like 100% healed,
Right.
and we're not, so we think it's not possible for us to reach that. But if we see someone who tried and failed and got back on his feet,
But I need both. I need both. Why do I need both? Why do I need that person in my life as a role model that if I really did snoop around and see what's going on behind closed doors, I actually would see tzidkus. Why do I need that person too? You have to talk a little bit louder?
You also have to show it. There's someone you should strive to be like, who's above you. There's someone who's like you.
So what are you saying about David Hamelech? That he's not above me?
He's obviously above us too, but someone you can identify with too.
Someone I can identify with, and something that I don't yet identify with, but I believe it. But I have to see in this world that it's possible.
Why do you find also David and Moshe? Like, you see 4, you would go straight to David?
No, it's not his chiddush, it's the Zohar. But this, you know what? I'll tell you something about this. This is very interesting. This last week, I had the privilege of being by 4 tzaddikim, like the caliber of like what we're talking about, of like Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, mamash, like. And then last night I was at a wedding, and all more of these again like the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov kind, right? And then there was one David Hamelech kind of tzaddik. And the David Hamelech tzaddik, it's amazing. Like it's exactly what he's saying. It's like, wow, that's what actually made me feel that it's possible for me to connect to the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov tzaddikim. You understand? Yeah.
When you originally mentioned it, it seems like there's a seder, like there's nothing to return from if you don't know what the midot are. So it's kind of the process.
Very good.
Whereas
Very
you
good.
learn the midot,
Yeah.
and then you return and you have avot.
Very good. You have to know where you're even going to. David Hamelech would be like, wait a second, if there's no Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, maybe I can't relate to them, but what am I even trying to get to if I don't have that? So it's the preface. Nachon. So he continues here. Again, דשלושת אבות השתדלו להיות רק טוב ולא חטאו כלל. ומה יעשה מי שאינו כמוהם? זה חידש דוד המלך עליו השלום. מקום שבעל תשובה עומדים, אין צדיקים גמורים יכולים לעמוד. This was the David Hamelech's chiddush of saying, I know you think that you have to be like them in order to be part of the program. That's not like that. Hikim ula shel Tshuvah. The first, I would say this is like exactly the difference between Noach and Avram Avinu. Noach believed that unless you're Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, you can't be part of the Merkava. Now, Avram, even though he's not like David, he believed in Baalei Tshuvah as well. How do we know? Because he was davening for them, right? So even though he himself doesn't fall into that category, the way that we learn the Torah, he believed they had a space at the table. It's just that his actions in life and his stories about him, what we know about him, don't really make me feel that after I've fallen so low, you know what, even I could do Tshuva. That we really learn from David Hamelech. And I'll say Yehuda as well.
The apples aren't fallible. They make mistakes, we know that.
They aren't what?
They're not infallible.
Infallible.
Okay, I mean, we know they're imperfect. So I mean, so comparing the tzaddikim who you see as perfect, to them, he doesn't.
I don't say about any tzaddik. Huh?
That's what I thought you were saying.
I don't think, Ein Sadiq, but we even say, Ein Sadiq ba'aretz asher lo yechta. I'm saying that what they bring to the energy they bring to you is different than the person that you know, because the Navi tells us about them, how low they fell. So what am I learning from them? I'm learning from them, from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. No one's perfect. There's no such thing. Only the Malachim, Kivyachol, and Hashem. But what they're teaching us is more, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is just like Midot Tovot, because the Tshuvah inyan is different. That's what we're saying. So I'm glad we clarified. No. And even the tzaddikim that I'm talking about, look, do I think they're perfect? But part of me does, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't get me nervous, but I also am sure that they do tshuva. I'm sure that they think, that they're not perfect at all. You have to also understand what kind of, I'll just give you one example on Wednesday, on Monday night. But right, Monday night was by Rav Ginsburg. Rav Ginsburg's 78th birthday, and he's on dialysis. He's waiting for a kidney. He's really not well, and everyone warned us and said, "Listen, you'll see the way he's walking, the way maybe it'll, he hasn't come out for like a real farbrengen like this in a very long time." And he came out, and he went for 4.5 hours, bringing down the sweetest Torah, that 95% of the people could not follow for their life, because that's what it's like with them. So even to say I got 5% is a very, very, very big thing. And he was speaking, he has this whole Torah about the revolutions of today, and it's all about women's learning, and it's about teaching Torah to the non-Jewish world. That's been his whole thing the last few years. It's unbelievable. People think he's like the most left-wing Hasidic Rav I've ever come in contact with, and his rep is so the opposite. It's unbelievable. But how does a person have the physical kochot to be able to do this when during the day they're in dialysis, and then how does a person do this? So it's not about perfection, it's about their chibur, like where they are. It's a world of tzidkut. Now, most of us look at that and be like,
What's it?
Tzidkut, piety? Piety, righteous, like utmost righteousness. But I don't go home and think for a second that could be me. Ever. Nor will I ever. But it's more of a person that when I see, they're trying really hard. I know that they've been into really, dark places, and yet now I see them and they're shining their light. That's me. Meaning that's the person I can go on a walk with. For instance, I always say this, if I had a chance to take a walk with Rabbi Nachman or Reb Nassan, I would never take a walk with Rabbi Nachman. Ever. Never. Huh? Reb Nassan, his Talmud. Yeah. I would never. Now, it doesn't mean because the Tzaddik and a Baal Tshuvah, it just means, I feel like Yeshli Dibur, I would, can you imagine taking a walk with Rabbi Nachman? It's not even, I can't imagine it. I feel like I could take with Reb Nassan, he writes about all his struggles so much, and, he writes so much about what he's been through, the pain he's been through, so the Baal Tshuvah, and we could take a walk with him. I think we want both tzaddikim, but Rosh Chodesh is a time for a certain type of tzaddik. Let's continue. וזה חידש דוד המלך עליו השלום, מקום שבעל תשובה עומדים אין צדיקים גדולים יכולים לעמוד, שהוא השגה גבוהה יותר, מה שמשיג אחר שטעם מהרע וחזר לטוב. When a person tastes the bad, and then they come back to the good, that grasping of good is higher, is much more higher and more elated than if they didn't. Like if a person kept Shabbos all their life and they never ever did an avera with it, but they never became like a real tzaddik or anything, they just never machal Shabbos. What's their Shabbos? It's holy, it's good, it's sweet. But if a person had Shabbos and then they didn't have Shabbos, then they came back and chose, Gevadu, I need Shabbos, you can't compare that person's Shabbos to the person that never didn't have Shabbos. Again, huh?
They have to go out and be part of the outside world.
Oh, really?
Before they go in baptism.
Oh, I don't know their halachas.
You don't accept the...
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
And they go out
And some don't come
That's
back.
so interesting. Right, and some probably don't come back.
No.
What are the percentages, do you know, of that come back? Yeah? It's interesting.
The outside world, especially when they're skiing, and we're all not the best in their culture.
Right.
So they go back and they come back and they wholeheartedly accept God, but they needed that time to
So what's the, I mean, there are millions of differences, but what's the main difference between us and them in this regard?
We live in this world.
Lechatchila versus b'diavad. But it seems it's a lechatchila there, right? Right, so here it's not right. But that's very interesting. I didn't know it's a shita. I don't know. Besides their facial hair, minhagim, I don't know a lot about what's going on over there. Very interesting. Okay. Kimashal ben melech, shegala ma'al shulchan aviv, like the son of the king that was exiled from his father's table. That means he was kicked out of the kingdom, or he left the kingdom. V'saval oni v'dachakut, and he suffered from living in such horrible terms and conditions and poverty. Ve'achar kach chazar l'shulchan aviv, and then he came back to his father's table. En dimion lehargashat inugo sham, neged hargashat oneg oto shelo gala ve'lo ta'am oni klal. The pleasure that kid has by the table, the one that knows what it's like to not be there, as opposed to the one that doesn't know what it's like to not be there, but they're both sitting at the same table, you can't compare the oneg that one has over the other. K'mo shemuvar mo midrash ubazor kayotza b'zeh kayadua. I always had a shaila on this Torah. Because when I read Torahs like this, and let's say I'm a good boy, and I never really rebelled, what you're telling me is, I can't really taste the pleasure of what the Baal Tshuvah is tasting, unless I follow the footsteps of the initial stages of a pre-Baal Tshuvah, right? So it's...
When Daniel and I started observing Shabbat, about a month of Shabbat after Shabbat, then we took the risk to take the Shabbat off to see what it's like. And we took the Shabbat off, and we went away, and we did not observe Shabbat. And after that, nope.
Wow.
That's it. We tried, we did the experiment.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so...
I mean,
not politically from correct. I love it. It's it's so great. It's so amiti. It's so, yeah.
now it could take,
Also,
Right.
you're supposed to, you're not supposed to not have a taiva for bacon cheeseburgers. You're supposed to want to eat them, and then say to yourself, but I'm not doing it because it's my avoda. So that could also accomplish that. The fact that instead of saying all these things I just don't even care to do,
Right.
it's like I still want to do them. Hashem put those drives inside me, but I'm choosing not to. So I don't know if that's
For each
considered
person,
the
it's-
For each person, it's different. Right. It's a very
It's different.
nachon.
No, but everyone has that opportunity.
No, but my drive in avodat Hashem should be that eventually I don't even want those things. That is the
I
goal.
learned Torah, I don't remember which one, but that was saying that you're always.
Maybe in the beginning, because that's in order to make a Baal Tshuvah not feel crazy guilty for still having
No,
natural
I'm
cravings.
an Orthodox Jew who's grown up, never.
I grew up I never ever had a taiva for
I've heard,
bacon and.
I read this Torah and it was very settling because I've had people that I know say, "Oh, I would love to try that," and it's like, "Really, what's wrong with you?" And then I learned this Torah and I'm like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. The fact that they're not trying it and they want to because it smells good or whatever it may be is
Okay.
so." Anyway,
Listen.
I was just saying that can really.
David Hamelech opened the gate for that person as well. Today there's no such thing FFBBTs. Everyone, we live in such a mixed world that there's no such thing anymore as that's the Baal Tshuva. What's the Baal Tshuva movement? It used to be a Baal Tshuva movement. There's no such thing anymore because most people that are, especially here, that maybe were Baal Tshuva or were raised religious, the next door, we all know. It's not there. So what's considered a Baal Tshuva movement? We're all mixed into this together. This is all Baruch Hashem, finally Amcha.
I don't know, within being kosher, within being from, you could also have different levels of.
Betach, nachon. Listen, I always say, for a Reformed Jew, we seem Haredi. For a Haredi, we seem like a Reformed Jew sometimes. Like certain Khalil, I'm not generally, God forbid, I shouldn't say that because I know Haredim that I wish I was like, and I know certain Reform Yidden that elements of them I wish I was like as well. Meaning, sincerity is but we just know everything is relative. Everything is relative, right?
I was wondering those people who grew up from the whole issue of choice. Because for me, all the reform, my life was reform.
Right.
It was not from this
Right.
And I actually pity people who grew up from it in some ways. Because if they never left it, and never chose it, and never came back to choose it, is it really a choice?
You know what? For those today that are really, it's so good what you're saying. I think that for those today, in today's day and age, that grew up from, in order to make it today, they have to choose it. They have to choose it. Once upon a time, it was enough that it was spoon-fed. And I think that's putting a big, it's a very big place of tension. I think it causes a very big place of almost threatening to the person that's listen, I have it, I grew up with it, I don't need to choose it. Usually if you say that, first of all, it's very hard for there to feel like there's aish, right? That it's aish, that it's fire, It's possible, but to give it over to your children, it doesn't mean that you have to diss Chalila what you got. Mapitom, you could choose it, and it doesn't contradict anything. Going off the derech was stop going to minyan. Right? You want to say, Inkvar, if you already went off the derech, go off the derech, Nachon. Alavai, that should be the off the derech of Efrat kids. They stopped going to minyan. But that, and that person though, if they'd start going to minyan again, they'd feel like a Baal Tshuvah. That's what's so amazing. That's what I'm saying is that it used to be a Baal Tshuvah meant someone that was not keeping mitzvahs at all, consciously or subconsciously, not right, and someone that was frum was that they kept everything, more or less. More or less, It's a different ballgame. That's why the light of David Hamelech is really the light that we need more than anything today. That's why Nagina, that's why singing isn't a luxury anymore. It's not optional. If you want a shul that can produce fun, and malas, you have to sing. You have to sing in your own life. You have to be connected to the poetry that's the inner poet that's within you, and the poetry that's happening around you. Have to be.
What you're doing now is connecting Tshuvah and Tshuvah.
Right? Of course, that's what it was. David Hamelech was the master. Can you imagine if like David Hamelech, we knew everything about him, but there was one thing that we didn't know about him, and that was his koach hanagina, right? Would I feel that inclined to feel connected to David Hamelech? Would I feel that inclined? There are a lot of things maybe that I wouldn't know about him. I'd still feel close to him. Why? Because I know that he went to the harp, he went to the violin, he went to the guitar, he went to the strings, he found refuge there. And I do too, and I can do that too. I can do that also. That's for me as well. This is David Hamelech. Last night by the place of the pigua, did you see what happened last night? It was late at night. A bunch of yeshiva bachers set themselves up with guitars right by the place of the pigua, and they were singing Reb Shlomo nigunim for hours, one after the other. Shema koileinu, Hashem Elokeinu. This is what else are they going to connect? So who created that? Avram Yitzchak Yaakov or David Hamelech? Right? So Jenny, it's true what you said. David Hamelech became David Hamelech because there was an Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But those kids, and many of them, they looked like they were sitting and learning for 10 hours that day. They for sure weren't, but that they can go back to. That they can go back to. Who created that world for us? This is David Hamelech. Okay, let's continue. There's a lot more to say about this, but let's continue. V'zeu Kedushas Rosh Chodesh. So this is what Rosh Chodesh is about. Behitchatshut or hayareach achar shehe'efil. What is Rosh Chodesh? What is the celebration of? What actually happens on Rosh Chodesh? What did he just say over here? The moon. What about the moon? There was darkness. There was a blemish. There was not blemish, but there was a covering. There was a missing. There was more darkness in the world. Huh? I'm actually not going to get into that right now, but it's true. It's connected to it. Kamuvan. It lessened from its light, right? And now there's hitchachut of the light of the moon after it was he'efil. That means after it was dark or shade, ofil. V'nitan liYisrael, and it was this Rosh Chodesh was given Rashi Chodashim le'amcha natata. You gave us Rosh Chodesh, so this was given to Yisrael. She'atidim li'itchadesh kmota. I look at the moon, and what do I say about myself? I could be that. Because yesterday I was like the moon too. What was the moon yesterday? Gone. I could, and Hashem said, I'm giving you the moon. Hashem says, okay, now look at what you could be. So who's the moon? Is it Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, or is it David Hamelech? It's David Hamelech. You see, by Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, there is no cycle. It doesn't, you understand? There's no ofel and darkness, and then they come and do Tshuvah. It's nothing to do with perfect or not. It's like the general way we look at them. Hashem says to us, look at, this is you. Atidim litchadesh kmota. You're going to renew yourself like what you're looking at. That's why by Kiddush HaChodesh, why do I have to look? I go outside, why do I have to look, right? Because Hashem says this is what you're going to be like. And then, you know what we do? Right after we look and we start saying Kiddush HaChodesh, what do we do? This is a deep Torah. We look at each other and what do we say? Shalom Aleichem. Why?
You knew after Chuva.
Huh?
You knew after Chuva.
Shalom Aleichem. Nice to meet you. What do you mean? I sat with you in shul all Shabbos. What are you talking about? Shalom Aleichem. Because I'm new.
That's the answer to the question before about how somebody in S&P still has the appreciation of the chiyuv is because of this. That's the answer. And it's also the answer how about Tshuvah needs it just the same as somebody's S&P, because even someone's about Tshuvah,
Nachon.
okay, so they
Mamash.
This is the answer.
Nachon.
This is the answer. We touch you, and that's what they
To both.
Right, to both.
The FFB is not perfect, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. He needs the hitchadshu, just like that's why David Hamelech is lekulam. That's why it's not just for Baal, it's everyone. We all need it. Look at it. Nitan liYisrael she'atidim litchadesh kmota ksheyukba balev. When it becomes fixed and permanent in your heart, gam darga de David Melech alav shalom benafshot kol Yisrael. He's saying this is the avot of Rosh Chodesh, is that the midah of David, who David Hamelech is, becomes yukba. You know, yukba, like kviyas mezuzah. It becomes fixed. It becomes permanent and like charut, like etched in your heart. V'zeu le'atid, and this is what the Navi says, and what's going to be in the future. Sheyivakshu et David Malkam. It says about the days of we're all waiting for. He said we're going to ask for Hashem to come down to us. Veyivakshu et Hashem Malkam ve'et David Malkam. We're going to ask for David, our King David again. Why? Because that's what we could relate to the most. Rotzeh lomar hitgalut oro belev kulam. Once this means that the revelation of the light of David Hamelech will be in the heart of everyone, Be'az, and then this is the Haftarah of Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Be'az, Be'haya midei Chodesh bechodsho, u'midei Shabbat beShabbato, yavo kol basar lishtachavot lifnei Hashem, and then what will be? Sheyeh kedushat HaChodesh ki kedushat HaShabbat. The Kedusha of Shabbat, he says, Shu atchalat HaKedusha de Kviya V'Kaima. Shabbos is a fixed and permanent state of holiness that's in the world. Why? Because Hashem said so. This is the Kedusha of Shabbos. By Yantiv, what do we say about Yantiv? Mekadesh Yisrael V'Azmanim. We have to kind of like sanctify it and everything to make it, kavua in our hearts. By Shabbos, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Boom, Hashem does it. So we're saying, La'atid lavo, the Kedusha of Rosh Chodesh will be as fixed and permanent in our hearts, just like the Kedusha of Shabbos is fixed and permanent in our heart, because that's Mitzad Hashem, it's fixed and permanent in our heart. But we are going to keep on inviting the Darga of David Hamelech every Rosh Chodesh. This is what it is, to bring the light of Tshuvah, of the light of what I could be. So much more, every month after month, that eventually, when I'm about to go to Beis HaMikdash, vaya midei chodesh bechodsho, umidei Shabbat beShabbato. Just like Shabbos is Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh will be Rosh Chodesh. In regards to how I feel, mitzad the kedusha of the day of Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is the most underrated day of the month. I think that in this past generation, B'schut HaNashim, it actually has regained a certain element of its importance and relevance, don't you think? Where there were women's Rosh Chodesh gatherings 30 years ago? Very few. Not so much. Today it's everywhere. It's a reclaiming of this light that comes from David Hamelech, and Reb Tzadok is saying the more that you reclaim this light, the more that this light is fixed and permanent in your heart. That means the more that you feel that you can do Tshuvah at any given second. At any given second. It means that the more that this light of Rosh Chodesh is part of the way that we live, then I don't get freaked out by darkness, because I know that tomorrow the sun's going to rise and I can come out, and then at the beginning of the month, it's going to start slowly to shine again. And then I don't get freaked out by the middle of the month anymore. Why don't I get freaked out? Because I remember there's I'm saying the day after, on Tet Zayin. What happens on Tet Zayin? It doesn't freak me out anymore. It doesn't freak me out. Why? David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. The full moon is like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov.
The sun is like
It's fixed. Yefeh. For that moment of the Areach, though, it looks like, oh, this is it. I get confused. I'm like, I identified as Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Then the next day, it's like, where did that go? No. It's David. The Or Levana is really the Or of David Malka Mashiach. This is what it is. שיהיה קדושת החודש, קדושת החודש שהוא התחלת הקדושה, דקביע וקיימה, והיא עוד קודמת לה. Not only will the light of Rosh Chodesh be just as strong as Shabbos, he's saying over here, it'll be even higher. Why? במקום שבא לתשובה עומדים, אין צדיקים גמורים יכולים לעמוד. He takes Shabbos to be the light of the tzaddik, And the light of Rosh Chodesh be the light of the Baal Tshuvah. And then he ends, I love how he says, Ve'en kamakom la'arich yoter. Let's just keep it as it is. We could go on and trying to understand this, but the end here, unless I completely didn't give this over good, it seems what he's saying over here is that la'atid lavo, the light of Rosh Chodesh, which is the light of the Baal Tshuvah, will have a higher hasaga in our hearts than even the light of Shabbos. Because of this, b'makom sheba'alei tshuva omdim en tzadikim gmurim yecholim la'amod. Now again, you don't have to go off the derech the way that we describe off the derech, and no one even knows what those words mean anymore, because for someone it's to stop going to minyan, and for someone it's to shave their beard, never put on tefillin again, or eat kosher. It's all, but David Hamelech is there. He's also there. And he's also by the kid that stopped going to minyan. And then that minyan becomes, I only put on tefillin once a week. David Hamelech is there. This is the light of Rosh Chodesh. This is why Rashei Chodashim Lamcha Natata Zman Kapara. It's a Zman of Kapara when I take advantage of the fact that yesterday was dark and today I see there's light shining in the world. We should be Zochim and Zochot to take advantage of the hitchachut of the light that's happening, whether we like it or not, it's happening in the world. But Hashem is saying, look at it. He tells us, look at it. Kazer re'eh v'kadesh. Right? Rashi explains to us. And Moshe Rabbeinu didn't even understand how this mitzvah works. Right? So remember Moshe Rabbeinu has a few mitzvahs that he needs help. He doesn't understand what it is. One of them is Kiddush Levana. What else does he have a problem with? Does anyone know? The menorah and the shekel also. But when it comes to the light, he's like, I don't know. So, look at it. Look, you have to look at it. Look at what it was. Look at what it is. Look at what it isn't. And then you'll understand yourself. So, Bezrat Hashem, we should all become continued Simcha Bali Tshuvas. Every single, one time I was on the plane with Aaron Razel, going to New York, and a woman came up to him, because he was much more hyper back then. He toned down a lot. He was really hyper. This is like 17 years ago. And he's jumping around the plane, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know this guy. I don't know him. We had a concert in New York. It's like, I don't know this guy. And then some woman, some old Israeli kibbutznik, turned to him and said, Tagid li, ata bal Tshuvah? Right? And he's looked at her, he says, Odlo. And you saw everyone's face like, what? Are you about Tshuvah? Not yet. It was a great moment. So are we Baalei Tshuvah? אנחנו בדרך. Chodesh Tov, everyone.